Support for WUWM podcasts comes from Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee, home to 24/7 excitement, dining, and an on-site hotel at 1721 West Canal Street. More information at potawatomi.com.
From 89.7 WUWM Milwaukee's NPR, this is Lake Effect. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Today, we'll bring you the story of one woman's fight against deportation and her journey back to Milwaukee. Then, Books and Beyond will dive into the books that have been checked out the most across our local library branches.
Yeah, wow, when this book came out, the waiting list, huge. I can't believe that it's still in this list of most checkouts in the last 6 months.
Plus, we'll bring you a new Chirp Chat about an artist inspired by bird migration in southeast Wisconsin.
So I've been sketching the birds in flight, which is a time-consuming activity, but it's really a labor of love.
All that's coming up on Lake Effect. This is Lake Effect from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Thanks for joining us today. A woman who fought against being deported from Milwaukee to El Salvador is now back in the city with her children. Yessenia Ruano's story captured attention after she spoke publicly about her forced deportation and her fight to stay in Wisconsin. Ruano has lived in Milwaukee for more than a decade, working as a teacher's aide and raised 2 children here. WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez brings us the story of her struggle to remain in Wisconsin, what it was like adjusting to a new country, and what it's like to be back.
Over the past few years, when we are talking about immigration, there have been a few stories in Wisconsin that you've probably heard of. And I would say the face of these conversations, the changing laws, and especially deportation, without a doubt, is Yessenia Ruano.
I started in Alba in 2017. I work with different levels since 6th graders, K-4 kids.
Yessenia was a teacher's aide at Alba. That's an elementary school here in Milwaukee.
Oh, when it's raining time, I sing with them. Si las gotas de lluvia fueran de caramelo, me encantaría estar ahí.
Yessenia is from a small mountain village in El Salvador. And growing up, her family did not have much, but she always had big dreams.
Since I was 11, I had a dream to go to the university, and I never knew how could I get that goal.
At 14, she moved from her village to live with her aunt and uncle, who lived closer to better schools. Yessenia became the first person in her family to graduate from college. But soon, everything would change. She says her family was targeted by local gangs. She received death threats, and her older brother was murdered. So were friends of hers. In 2011, Yessenia crossed into the U.S. seeking asylum. And for almost 15 years, she lived in Wisconsin in relative peace.
When did things change?
That thing changed in November 2024. Yeah, that's when the storm started. I was struggling for a hard way. I was very scary at this point when the new government started on.
It is only common sense that when I'm reelected, we will begin, and we have no choice, the largest deportation operation in American history.
At the time, Yessenia had a lawyer, one she trusted, but there was a lapse in her status, making her vulnerable at a vulnerable time.
My attorney told me, so, Yessenia, I want to be honest with you, you will be deported. And I can do nothing for you.
A Milwaukee Public Schools teacher's aide has been told by immigration officials to self-deport.
And now a Milwaukee teacher's aide is learning she will be deported.
With tears, holding tight to close friends and family, Yessenia Ruano said goodbye to the life she spent 14 years building.
Yessenia's situation illustrates the absurdity of our immigration laws and the ridiculousness of what we put people through here in the United States.
This is Mark Christopher. He's an immigration attorney in Wisconsin. And around this time, when Yessenia is facing deportation in early 2025, he starts to represent her.
So I was very honored to take the case. We knew at that point that most of the options and cards had been played from a legal standpoint, but I just didn't want her to walk through this last part of the process alone.
My husband and me, we tell, okay, no more American dreams. We had to go back to El Salvador. Yeah, everything is done right here, right now. And the other part was my daughters.
It wasn't just Yessenia going back. She had a family. What would her husband do? And their twin daughters.
Was very sad because, I work very hard to accomplish every goal, that like a house, a car. And I had to say goodbye for everything that I worked hard for many years.
In June of 2025, Yessenia Ruano, her daughters, and their dog Copitos, or Snowflake, were forced to leave their lives in Milwaukee, heading to a country the girls had never been to, never known, one where the family had no clue how they'd make a living or continue their dreams. When Yessenia Ruano fled gang violence in El Salvador and first tried to enter the U.S., she said she was clueless about the process.
When we left our country, we don't know about the laws here, how the system works. So they told me I was unable to apply for asylum, and they forced me to sign for deportation the first time.
She was quickly deported back to El Salvador, but her second attempt was different.
The second time, I speak clear with the immigration official, and I asked for withholding. It's kind of asylum.
She was interviewed by an asylum officer while in a detention center in Texas, and eventually she was bonded out of detention for $5,000 from a friend in Wisconsin.
People told me, why are you going to Wisconsin? It's very cold over there. It's a horrible place. And I said, I don't know, because my friend who is paying my bond, he has to give the address, and I have to move over there.
Over the next 12 years, Yessenia built a life in Milwaukee, finding work and love, all while keeping in touch with a young, growing immigration agency called ICE. In 12 years, she had 18 check-ins. No trouble.
When she came in the first time, would have been her opportunity to present her asylum claim. But what they do is they round up large amounts of people and they just kind of push them through. So when she got sent back, she essentially had a removal order at that point at the border.
Immigration lawyer Mark Christopher again. And that last part about the removal order is very important.
So when she came back in and actually presented her asylum claim, the fact that she had been the target of violence, her family had been the target of violence in her home country, she was no longer eligible for asylum. She was only eligible for something called withholding of removal.
Withholding of removal, the status Yessenia applied for, basically allows someone to get a work permit and get stable, but not too stable.
Remember, withholding doesn't give you permanent status.
You're always in limbo.
You're always in limbo.
Knowing the withholding status wouldn't keep her safe when Trump returned to office, she applied for a T visa, something available for trafficking victims. The cost of this was another $16,000, but at least this would keep her safe from deportation. And that's because U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, doesn't deport people with open T visa cases, or at least they didn't. Mark says he had a contact inside of ICE at the time who told him Yessenia was now a target for removal. So, at the advice of a close friend, in February 2025, Yessenia goes public with her story.
No, November 24th, they say Yessenia has to be deported. And I was not prepared for this notice. I was not prepared just to leave this country with my family.
At her April check-in, ICE gave her a 30-day extension. But in late May, she's ordered to carry out her own deportation. Mark Christopher quickly filed something called an emergency pause on her removal. That soon failed. And Yessenia was out of options.
And so that's when I think Yessenia made the very difficult decision that rather than fight out this legal battle while being detained and her two children being by themselves with her husband, that they were going to make the difficult choice to return back.
I started to giving my plants, my everything. I was donated to Goodwill, my stuff. My daughters, we celebrate her birthdays, number 10th. I invite some friends for my daughters, like a party, but it was no party. It was just saying goodbye. And my daughter's classmate. We was with the cake. It was that feeling was like a saying goodbye as a funeral, because we know that it was the last time in Milwaukee.
Around 10:30 a.m. on June 17, 2025, Yessenia and her daughters boarded a United Airlines flight from Milwaukee to San Salvador. It was the girls' first time on a plane, leaving the only home they've ever known.
Like a tornado inside. I have a tornado emotional. Talking with my family about the problem was very hard, especially with my daughters, because they are 10 years now, and they are crying now. They are leaving their school, their friends, and family. We arrived on Tuesday at night. The next day, I see my mom, my sisters, my family by my husband. My daughters hugging their grandmothers. That was like a gift too. I don't know. It's like a very special transition. There's un río. We are walking in the river where my husband grew up.
Yessenia and the girls shared a room in her mother-in-law's home. Copitos was there too. Her husband Miguel, who was undocumented, left Milwaukee and joined them a few months later.
90 grados. Ya aprendimos algo nuevo.
The adjustment period in El Salvador could be a whole episode. The stifling heat and humidity, sharing spaces, trying to find a good school, all while Yessenia had to figure out a way to make money. While she pieced together work and a home, the girls were struggling. Everything was different and harder, unfamiliar. Even for Yessenia, it felt like a different country than the one she knew before.
My hope was still in there. And my husband told me, Yessenia, just let it go. Even I was there in my country, I was keeping my hope, my faith that something good is going to happen. I don't know when, but I feel it.
I'm always looking and talking to different immigrant rights groups, legal teams, lawyers.
Mark Christopher again.
And there was an pro-immigration law group out in California where they were filing a lawsuit for people in Yessenia's position, saying, this is absurd. How are you going to deport someone who has a pending T visa?
Mark reaches out to the group and says,
listen, I've got this client. I think she's very sympathetic. And I actually sent the newspaper articles over to them. And they said, we think that she would be a great person to add to this lawsuit.
The lawsuit was filed in mid-October, and for almost 7 months, nothing. More limbo. Then, in May of this year, the ruling comes out. Yessenia and the others can return.
And so it was then that they ordered the Department of Homeland Security to bring her and her children back into the United States to allow her to finish the T visa process.
Tonight, she's back in Milwaukee after more than a year away.
My daughters would tell me, we want to go back to school, we want to go back to Alba, and I would tell them this is what we have available right now.
When you're in El Salvador and you're with your family and you get news that you and the girls are able to come back, how are you feeling?
I cry. I cry for happiness. I was like, that was my hope. Thank you, God, for this miracle, because it was a miracle.
Was it hard then, knowing that Miguel wouldn't be able to come back with you?
Yeah, I was sad. Like, in Spanish we say agridulce, like a sour grapes. Notice about when they told me Miguel is unable to come with you. And Miguel told me, Yessenia, I think God is giving you this chance. So take advantage. I can wait here. I can finish our home here in El Salvador, and you can still with the girls over there, and so they can go to school.
There are potential other avenues the family could explore. The girls being born in the U.S. are U.S. citizens. When they turn 21, they could petition for Miguel to become a permanent resident. But even though Yessenia is back in Milwaukee with her daughters, she still has fear.
I still feel a little afraid to be catched by ICE again. I don't feel like in a safe now. Just my hope is still waiting for my process. But I see news and how people is getting in detention.
You are protected under the letter of the law, and I would love to tell you that there's no risk that ICE would come at you. They shouldn't under the law, but I deal every day with cases whereby they're detaining people who have temporary protected status, or they have some other type of status where they shouldn't be detained, or they have DACA status. Yeah. And you really have to push back on these types of arrests and detainments. So they do happen. I'm hopeful, and I don't think that would happen in your case, but I wouldn't be honest with you if I said that there was no chance.
And every day they are closing doors, In my case, knocking every door, and every door is closing, so this is what it is.
Things are different.
Yeah. People don't care about kids' feelings because my daughters tell me, Mom, you say in school kids are very important. We are the future in whatever country, but that is not true. News and rhetoric, politicians are telling the immigrants we are criminals, like bad things. And I'm very sad to see that divided people here in this country, maybe in the whole world. We are fighting for a crisis since while the whole world is dying.
It's kind of like all of that energy we're spending on hating, we could spend on loving.
Yeah.
But it's a choice.
It's a choice in what part do we like to be, hating or working for others. I decide to keep loving.
There's still no timeline for Yessenia's T visa application and when it would be processed, and what the outcome will be. For now, she's getting the girls ready for another school year. They're back at Elba, and she hopes to return to a classroom soon too. She's just waiting on her employment permit to get approved. One more step, and just a little bit more waiting, she says.
That story was produced by WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez for WUWM's podcast, Status Pending. You can hear more of Ruano's story by searching for Status Pending wherever you get your podcasts. And just like Status Pending, Lake Effect is also available as a podcast so you can listen when you like. Subscribe, download, and listen on demand. In about 15 minutes, we'll tell you about an artist in residence program that blends art with nature. But first, in our Books and Beyond series, we'll dive into the books that have been checked out the most across all library branches recently. Keep listening to Lake Effect to find out what those are on 89.7 WUWM. You're listening to Lake Effect on Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. The library is more than just books, and our Books and Beyond series with the Milwaukee Public Library showcases just that. We share resources, book recommendations, and some cool stuff you might not know about. Today, I'm joined by Jackie Potratz, the fiction and media selector at Milwaukee Public Library, to talk about some of the most popular titles people can't wait to read. But before we get into what titles these are, Jackie explains how they keep track of what books are most popular.
So what we're going to talk about today are titles that have had the most checkouts in the county of Milwaukee for the last 6 months.
Okay.
So that's how we came up with these titles, and it's a very interesting mix, I think.
Yeah, and it must be a pretty big number of checkouts to stand out in 6 months. I mean, with all the locations and all the possible things people can check out.
Absolutely, yeah. There's some of these books have had waiting lists and still do, where we've seen upwards of 400 people waiting for our titles. So,
okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. We're going to start off with The Correspondent by Virginia Evans.
Yeah, so The Correspondent is the story of Sybil Van Antwerp, and the story is told through a collection of letters. She writes to everybody, her family, her former colleagues. and even her literary idols, and she's offering them unsolicited advice about their work. So very interesting. But I think that this is unique because it's told in the epistolary form, which means that it's told through letters that she writes. And for me, and I think many readers, this offers a form of nostalgia. Newer novels sometimes incorporate text messages, blogs, emails, and those are very popular too. But I really personally enjoy when it's back to letter writing. And so if that's the format that you like to read while you're waiting for the correspondent, because I know there's still holds on this.
Yes.
The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society is the next most close. It's written also through letters. I wish more authors would use this convention because I think it really appeals to people.
And then for one of the next most popular reads, it's called Heart the Lover by Lily King.
Yeah, and she connects her book with Writers and Lovers, which was published a few years ago, and it centers around the narrator, who I'm not going to name because if you haven't read that, some things don't get revealed until later, so I'm not going to spoil anything now, but this one I think will appeal to people who like love triangles. It's set on a campus, though, too, so in addition to Heart the Lover, you may enjoy Commencement by J. Courtney Sullivan. I like this one, too, because it captures the intensity of those college friendships that people have. And there's also, in this particular book, the romances and how they untangle after college and through their adult lives. So I think people like these because you can root for the protagonist to fall in love with one or the other or both. And oftentimes, in all these cases, the authors do such a great job of not letting you know until the end which two are going to end up together. So I think that definitely...
Little long game play out.
It draws people in to read the love triangle.
Well, and do you think some of this also has to deal with there's a lot of campus themes and stories in media right now, like young adult, college age shows?
Yes, what we call new adults.
New adults,
in the library. So they're just older than young adult, but I don't even know exactly what young adult means.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be your heated rivalry and that type of story.
Okay, excellent. So let's move on to Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. And this centers around an octopus, right?
It does. And at first I thought this was a really quirky idea, but the opening of the book starts with Marcellus, that's the name of the octopus, and he is telling his own story, and it's just delightful. I also had the remarkable opportunity to meet Ms. Van Pelt and interview her at Milwaukee Public Library a couple years ago. And at that time, she knew that the book was going to be produced as a movie, but it wasn't out on Netflix yet. So now that it is, if you haven't heard about it, Sally Field is amazing. Lewis Pullman, couple other, you'll recognize everyone in the cast from something or not another. But this is a story about Tova, an older woman who works nights in the aquarium, and she ends up making friends with Marcellus. Octopus are remarkable creatures. I've watched a few Netflix documentaries, and she just writes his character so well. It doesn't come off as anything but authentic. And so I really think people will enjoy this. She lost her son when he was young. And Marcellus, without speaking, finds a way, because he knows what happened to her son. He finds a way to tell her, to show her. And it's just remarkable.
I'm intrigued. And we'll take a bit of a shift in tone, some historical fiction, but based on very real events. This one in the Vietnam War specifically. It's called The Women by Kristen Hanna.
Yeah, wow. When this book came out, the waiting list, huge. I can't believe that it's still in this list of most checkouts in the last 6 months. But this is the story of Frances McGrath. She's a nurse serving in the U.S. Army Corps during the Vietnam War, as Audrey mentioned. The strong protagonists, the wartime settings, and deep friendships. I think that people are drawn to this because you're combining high-stakes human drama with the reality of true events. A lot of people have family, friends who experience this firsthand, and so that can really draw people in to reading something. And it's also sort of puts people in that position of, what would I do if I were
It's not that
in
far
that?
removed, right?
Yeah, and so you have to put yourself in the character's position and think,
Yeah.
could I, would I? And that's really what I think one of the main draws is there.
And we were talking a little bit about how visual media can influence what people are getting at the library. And one on this list, I would imagine for sure, is an effect of the film Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir.
Yes, I'd say you're completely accurate in that statement. That's what got people to check this book out. And maybe also because people remember The Martian, which was also a fantastic film book adaptation. So Andy Weir is just amazing. Got a lone astronaut here on an impossible mission, on an ally no one could imagine. He knows that if he fails, humanity and Earth will perish. So there's a lot on the line here. Yeah, and I think that what draws people to read books like Project Hail Mary is that sense of wonder and our unknowing of what lies beyond.
Yeah, and there's a couple similar feels if people can't get their hands on Project Hail Mary from the library right away. And one is the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. And I actually did talk about this a bit with our friends at Boswell Book Company because that was on this past year, their books to gift recommendations, that they were also getting a lot of traction for the Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah, I'm totally not surprised.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as a gift book, but now that you mention that, it would be an excellent gift book. Start with the first one. I think there are 8 out now total. They're just fantastic. It's gritty sci-fi, but it's got a lot of humor, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of a thing. And an alien corporation destroys all man-made structures on Earth, and now the remaining people are stuck on an intergalactic reality television show. I don't know what else you could want there.
That's a good pitch.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. If you're not, into the whole, gaming intergalactic thing, there's also The Future by Naomi Alderman. And this is about 3 powerful tech billionaires preparing for an impending global apocalypse while leaving the rest of humanity behind. So very similar, all of them, but you'll be sure to enjoy any of them.
Awesome. And lastly, we have The God of the Woods by Liz Moore.
Yeah, so this is really mystery, like straight up mystery. It's 1975. A girl goes missing from her summer camp bunk. And she's not just any girl, she is the daughter of the camp owners. And years ago, her brother disappeared, and he has not been found. So I think this is really one of those high-stakes mysteries. It's also very atmospheric and involves drama, family drama, and some pretty good, I would say, sharp social commentary as well. So all those things will really drive people to want to enjoy this book.
Now, I know with the work you do, it's not simply just tracking all of the books that are being checked out the most, but what do you guys notice, like, behind the scenes at the library when a lot of people get traction or when you're talking to patrons? What is bringing people to these books?
Usually they've heard about it somewhere else, word of mouth. So either they heard it on the radio, they read about it in a newspaper or magazine, or they heard about it from a friend. I honestly believe that friends and family, word of mouth is the biggest push for me, and I think for a lot of people to read something that they're unfamiliar with. Who are you going to trust more than, your sister or your cousin or your best friend telling you, I read this, I loved it, I want you to read it too. So I think that's definitely it. And then working at the library, when patrons come in, everyone likes to tell you what they're reading. If someone's reading, if they're a reader and you're a reader and you ask what are they reading, good luck getting that conversation to end so you can move on to the next person who needs help.
Yeah.
But I truly value those interactions and I listen deeply. I purchase all the fiction for the city of Milwaukee, so it's extremely important to me. And there's nothing more helpful than that firsthand feedback.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for coming in to share these titles. And, hopefully you gave people a lot of good options to check out in the meantime while they're on the wait list for some of these major titles. But thank you for joining us on Lake Effect.
Thanks, Audrey.
Jackie Potratz is a librarian in Milwaukee Public Library's Acquisitions, Serials, and Interlibrary Loan Services. She joined me for the latest books and beyond, and we covered a lot more titles if you want even more reading recommendations based on the most popular checkouts right now. You can find Jackie's full list at wuwm.com. The Artservancy is a year-long artist residency that promotes the visionary work of both artists and conservationists. The program is a partnership between Gallery 224 in Port Washington and nature preserves throughout southeast Wisconsin. The way it works is 12 artists choose a preserve to spend time in throughout the year and then create artwork that represents what they discover. Each residency project is then exhibited at the gallery the following year. Rebecca Jabs is one of the artists in residence and is exploring the Forest Beach Migratory Preserve for her project. She's also a science illustrator based in Manitowoc. Jabs joins Lake Effect's Grid Nunez for this month's Chirp Chat to learn about the history of Forest Beach and why bird migration inspires her residency project.
You selected to participate in this residency with the Forest Beach Migratory Preserve. What makes this area a unique place to study?
Well, I chose Forest Beach for several reasons, one being proximity to where I live. But more importantly, I noted that in the name, Migratory Preserve, that piqued my interest as a birder. Learning how the management of this particular preserve serves as migratory bird stopover habitat was really intriguing to me. So that's how I ended up selecting Forest Beach, which is managed by the land trust called Restoring Lands. This location has a very interesting history. You might have noticed that as you drove in, its address is on Country Club Road. That's because this land was once a golf course. And when it no longer was used as a golf course, management was taken over by Restoring Lands, and it is restored and managed primarily as migratory stopover habitat for birds. You might wonder, what does that mean? Well, we know that birds migrate. They have breeding grounds, often in the north, and then they winter in locations to the south. But what I think sometimes we don't think about as much is, what happens on that journey? What do birds need? And when they are migrating, mostly during the night, they need to make stops for food and, maybe rest, a little shelter. And locations like Forest Beach provide that critical stopover habitat that helps birds on their journey.
So can you walk me through your creative process, especially as a science illustrator? When you come and visit Forest Beach, what things do you take note of or pay attention to when you're walking through it?
We are uniquely situated here in Wisconsin along the Mississippi Flyway, which is, a long time route that birds use during migration. So when I come here, I am primarily looking for birds, and I used the app called eBird, a citizen science platform that allows people to contribute bird sightings in the form of checklists that can contribute to data collection. And so I am birding both with my binoculars and by ear. I've worked really hard to get to know the various calls and songs of birds because it really enhances my whole experience. You don't always have the chance to see a bird, and hearing it creates this wonderfully immersive experience as I'm walking. It puts me in the moment as I'm walking through the preserve. I'm thinking about birds, but more than that, I find my thoughts meandering to the history of the land and the value of land and different ways we ascribe value to land. These are all things that contribute to my experience here as I think about how I would interpret Forest Beach Migratory Preserve in the form of my art. When I get home, I compile my checklists, and I've been thinking about ways to represent the data I've collected in a way that communicates more than data. So that's my next challenge. I have been focusing on migration as a topic. So I've been sketching the birds in flight, which is a time-consuming activity, but it's really a labor of love. And now what I'm doing is thinking about how to complete this project, which is still very much in the works, and represent a timeline of migration and get people to think about how much is happening in our world and in the natural community if we take the time to look.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the project that you're working on, will you mainly be using your skills as a science illustrator, or are you using different types of media?
My project is still very much in the works because with any large-scale project, there are different logistical factors to figure out. Can I do this? And if so, how can I make this? So I am in the process of drawing about 75 different bird species in flight. My list at this moment in time stands at 118 species observed in this location, but some of those are resident birds that stay here year-round. Some are just really big, and I want to represent all of the birds at life size. So I'm focusing on migratory songbirds in my project, and what I'd like to do is find a way to combine drawing, painting, and printmaking techniques to represent the movement of birds on a large scale at a large scale.
I'm Lake Effects Excret Nunez speaking with Rebecca Jabs about her artist in residency project at the Forest Beach Migratory Preserve in Ozaukee County. So the Artservancy is a really unique program, but when I'm listening to you tell me about everything you're working on, all I keep thinking about is, how did you get here? So have you always had a relationship to birds and nature throughout your life?
Oh, that's a great question with a sort of meandering answer. My first career was as a K-12 public school art teacher. And as a teacher, we strive to facilitate a sense of curiosity in our students, and we hope that they become lifelong learners. And I think what happened is I took my own advice. And I reached a point where there were so many things I was interested in that I decided I wanted to continue my own education. What I discovered is the Science Illustration graduate program at California State University at Monterey Bay, which I chose because what I realized is science illustration was the art I had been making all along. And once I realized that this was a field that I could explore, I knew that this was my path. And what I love is that with each project that I take, I'm learning something new. And this is actually how I became a birder. Now, as a science illustrator, I realize that part of my job is to open doors for other birders through the work that I make and help to communicate that anyone can be a birder, and it brings a lot of joy to my life. The same can be true for anyone who has even a passing interest.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. When it comes to this project, or maybe a project for a client, what do you need to be mindful of when creating a scientific illustration, and how do you balance that with creativity?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest difference, with science illustration, versus the art that I do for a gallery exhibition, is that the most important factor is accurate, clear, concise communication of information. And that always has to be in the driver's seat. If it can be beautiful, that's great. And that can be very inspiring. But what we're trying to do is help people to understand something that might be difficult to describe or visualize using text alone.
That makes a lot of sense. Before we start wrapping up, I kind of want to end on this note of like, what do you hope to communicate through this art residency project that you're working on?
Well, on the surface level, it's about the birds. If you take the time to look, you're going to be rewarded. On a deeper level, I'd like people to think about the land and how we use it and how we see our relationship to the land. And what does this mean for the actions we take and how we manage the land around us?
Well, Rebecca, before I let you go, we've reached the end of Chirp Chat, which is when I love to ask guests to shine a spotlight on a bird for the month. I know you've been thinking about this because you're a Chirp Chat listener. What's a bird you'd like to highlight this month?
Well, I'm really excited to tell you about one of my very favorite birds, which is the black-billed cuckoo. We have two cuckoo species that breed here in Wisconsin, the yellow-billed and the black-billed cuckoo. And for whatever reason, this summer, I've been lucky enough to see more black-billed cuckoos than in a normal year. The cuckoo is one of those birds that is a relatively common breeding bird here in Wisconsin, but I think a lot of people don't realize it's here. I know I sure didn't, just because they are very secretive and shy, and they don't tend to behave like other birds. They have a habit of sitting very still in a tree. So I always get the sense when I see one that it has allowed me to see it. And that makes the sighting very special. To describe the bird, it is probably about a dove-sized bird with a very slender body, a somewhat long, slightly curved bill, and a very long tail. It is brown upper and white underparts. And then the black-billed cuckoo, of course, has the black bill and a red eye ring. The cuckoo is really neat. It has zygodactyl feet, which means just like woodpeckers and owls, 2 toes in front, 2 toes in back, which is different from many, perching birds. And it has an appetite for caterpillars, spiny caterpillars. So if you are walking around and you're seeing tent caterpillars or webworms, this is when you start scanning the trees for that shape, look for that long tail. But it's always a special day when you see a cuckoo, just because they're here and you get the sense that they're seeing you, but are they allowing you to see them?
I've personally never seen a cuckoo before. I've seen one in a field guide, but the way you're describing it, it's giving like tropical bird almost in Wisconsin. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really enjoyed learning more about you and your artwork. This was really fun, and I'm excited for people to see the final project.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to talk about my favorite subject.
Thank you.
Rebecca Jabs is an Art Servancy resident at Forest Beach Migratory Preserve. She's also a freelance science illustrator in Manitowoc. Jabs spoke with Lake Effect's Excret Nunez for this month's Chirp Chat. You can see pictures of Jabs' artwork at wuwm.com. We'll take one more break, and when we return, we're kicking off a new season of Bubbler Talk with a look at some unique housing in Milwaukee.
It is so exciting when you step out of the rectangular box. As Wright would say, when you break the box, you connect with the landscape, you connect with a different way of living.
That's next on Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. This is Lake Effect on Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Finally today, Bubbler Talk is back for a new season. Here's WUWM editor and project leader Emily Files kicking off this latest season that answers your questions about the Milwaukee area.
Bubbler Talk, quenching Milwaukee's thirst for knowledge.
I'm WUWM's Emily Files, and today's story is about someone who literally thought outside the box. It started with a question from Christine Hinrichs.
I've always wondered about the round apartment buildings on Blue Mound and about 92nd Street.
The twin dwellings are one-story tall, brick, built in 1954.
I vaguely remember reading one time that they were supposed to be a more efficient use of space as a building, so that's why I asked the question.
All right, so we're walking into one of these, what do you call them?
We call them the roundhouses.
Jamie Brock is director of residence life for Wisconsin Lutheran College, which owns the two round apartments and uses them for student housing.
We house mostly seniors, and we do single apartments up here.
Each building has 6 one-bedroom units and a shared laundry room at the center. Here's how Jamie describes it.
It's kind of like a piece of pie, but it's almost more like a piece of pie with like a bite taken out of it because they're not like triangle. So
right, there's the center common area.
Yeah, yep.
These apartments are on the Milwaukee-Wauwatosa border. But if you live in Racine or have spent time there, you've probably seen a lot of similar round brick homes. They caught the attention of Colette Broadway, a former realtor in the Racine area. She worked with an agent who got a listing for one of the roundhouses at 1209 Walton.
So I actually fell in love with that house so much that I purchased it and refreshed it. I would have loved to have hung on to it, but I sold it.
That was where Colette's fascination with the roundhouses began. She wanted to know who built them.
So they were designed by an architect by the name of Anton Cradaville. He was from the Racine area.
Anton Cradaville was born in Manitowoc in 1886. His family was from Czechoslovakia, and they moved to Racine, where there was a large Czech population. Anton was a man of many interests and talents.
He was a vaudeville performer. He was a contortionist, and at some point he decided to go into construction.
His business specialized in circular homes, using the slogan, "It's sound if it's round." He built the first one in 1939. According to one newspaper account, Anton got the idea from an igloo-shaped ice cream stand. To get more insight into why he thought roundhouses were better, I talked to someone who knew him well.
My name's Gary Cradaville, and I'm Anton's grandson.
Gary lives in San Antonio, but he has fond childhood memories in Racine, spending time with Grandpa Tony. That's Anton. He says Anton was creative, opinionated, full of ideas. As for the roundhouses,
money was tough back then, and so you needed the most square footage for the least amount of dollars. Well, if you took a rectangle house and figured the perimeter boundary of it, and you took that perimeter and made it round, you'd use the same footage, but you gain like 30-something% floor space.
most of the single-family roundhouses are around 1,000 square feet. Some are more rectangular with rounded edges, others are seashell-shaped. As for the layout, some designs show the dining room in the center with the other rooms surrounding it, like pieces of a pie. Eric Vogel is a Milwaukee architectural historian. He had never heard of Anton Cradaville before I reached out, but he's not surprised to learn about his motivation.
The tremendous innovation coming out of the Depression years. What everybody knows is that no one can afford to build a traditional house anymore, and that there's a severe affordable housing shortage. And so there's a tremendous amount of government interest and private sector interest in creating the most affordable, most efficient houses that they can. And I think that's where the inspiration for Cradaville's circular houses is coming from.
Eric says Anton wasn't the only 20th century renegade architect experimenting with the circle. He points to designs from Frank Lloyd Wright, Bruce Goff, and the Keck brothers.
It is so exciting when you step out of the rectangular box. As Wright would say, when you break the box, you connect with the landscape, you connect with a different way of living. Bruce Goff didn't actually pursue circular designs because of structural or economic efficiency. He said circles were more sociable. He thought it was a better way for human beings to gather.
And for any skeptics, Gary says Anton had a handy way of proving his theory about round homes.
Tony would take pack of cigarettes, tear the top off, tear the bottom off, and then, make it round again and stuff more cigarettes into that pack. Well, I didn't make the package bigger, but I changed its form and created more space.
Colette Broadway, the former realtor, believes there are 24 Cradaville homes in Racine and at least 10 more in other cities, including those 2 apartments in Milwaukee. They're all thanks to one man who wasn't afraid to think outside of the box.
What have you always wanted to know about the Milwaukee area? Visit wuwm.com/bubblertalk to submit your question.
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky.
And Bubbler Talk wraps up today's Lake Effect. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. If you've missed any of the show this week, you can find all of our conversations at wuwm.com. If you'd like to take us on the go, you can download the Lake Effect podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us today, right here on listener-supported 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.
Where they were put in boxes and they came out all the same. And there's doctors and lawyers.